everybody, and thank you for checking out this Heroes of the Storm video here on G4G. So as we all know, in the Braxis holdout patch recently, a lot of heroes have been changed. My beloved Valla got a massive rework, and she's changed a lot. Also, on the assassin front, the Butcher has changed quite a bit too. He's a little bit slower to start in that he's a little squishier in the beginning, and his talents have changed a lot. But he is a force of nature in the late game. And I wanted to go through my late game Butcher build for you guys. As you can see here, this was my third match of the day. This was Braxis holdout, and I did Butcher 3 in a row. I had Diablo and Assassin. So I just was like, okay, not really feeling Valla too much at the moment, so let me do Butcher. I've run into some really disgusting Butchers lately. And I used to have a great build that was just nice and all around and kept me going and kept me not stupid, because Butchers have the tendency of being really, really stupid and really divey. And as you can see, I wound up with the least amount of deaths on the server. So you have to have a little bit of like Zen patience and get over early butcherness. And I mean, I even had a Reaper, a Nova on the other side, and I still only wound up having 3 deaths. And that was because I missed a brand early on. So, okay. Here are the stats. So you can see the result of this over here. And we actually consistently lost beginning beacons where we would do well and then things would just fall apart and we would lose both beacons and we'd get a Zerg rush. But in all honesty, what made the late game was my late Butcher build. And it sounds kind of arrogant, but in this case it wasn't. I was catching a lot of people with a few things. So here are my talents, and I'll go over them on the talent screen itself, but you'll see what I used for this match, and I'll show you some other ones where I've done some flair. So, Abattoir, which I basically used on Old Butcher, except it was slightly different. Unrelenting Pursuit, that has stayed with me from old to new. Victuals, every time a nearby enemy minion dies, you regain 4% of your max health. That one is new. It didn't used to be in his kit. For this particular match, I went Furnace Blast, but I had been doing Hitching Post the last 2. Savage Charge, Enraged, and Nexus Blade. So, let me go ahead and go over my Butcher build with you guys. So, in Tier 1 we have Invigoration, Block, Chop Meat, and Abattoir. I honestly believe Abattoir is the clear best over here. I don't care who's on the other side. I'm not going Block. There are some heroes and some tanks that I will do Block depending on what I see on the other side, but definitely not. Increase hamstring damage to non-heroes? No. He's great. He's a great laner, especially because laning is good for his meat, but no. Invigoration, if hamstring hits a hero, half the mana cost is refunded and cooldown. No. Not worth the 1 second, and Butcher really doesn't have mana problems too much. On Braxis, there was like once where most of my abilities were grayed out, and that's once in 3 straight matches. Flail Axe, increase the length of hamstring by 40%. Not bad. However, Unrelenting Pursuit, reduce the cooldown of Ruthless Onslaught by 33% on impact. Let me tell you what this does. That means in a standard one-on-one engagement, if you charge in and brand string, by that I mean charge in, hit the brand, hit a hamstring, and you stay on that guy, and he doesn't really have a lot of evasion like, say, a Valla vaulting out or something like that, or a Raynor pushing you back. Let's just say you are on Dahaka, okay? And Dahaka's like trying to run away from you going, oh crap, I'm not going to lose. I'm going to lose this fight. Unrelenting Pursuit allows you to lead in with a charge, a ruthless onslaught, nail the person, slow them, and as long as you don't miss the second hamstring of the engagement, your ruthless pursuit is probably going to be up again. A, when they're still relatively close, or B, maybe right at the tail end of your targeting circle, and then you'll get the guy back and you'll re-engage. Crucial talent. I absolutely love this thing, and I will pick nothing else in these two tiers, Abattoir and Unrelenting Pursuit. Over here, Insatiable Blade, increase Butcher's brand's healing from 75 to 100% of your basic attack damage. While facing the Brandon enemy, your movement speed, nice. Admittedly, now that I'm actually taking the time to read this and not picking it in the heart of battle, I like it. It sounds good, and it sounds perfect to counter the new early game weakness that he has. That is pretty cool. However, I've been doing victuals every time I played Butcher since the new patch. At least today. When I was doing him earlier on in this new patch, maybe I did Insatiable Blade. But I like this one because there's generally stuff around you. Maybe in really, really long maps, like Curse of the Raven God or something, victuals might not suit you well. You may have some really, really big gaps or a lot of non-lane space, but I like this and allows me to stay out longer and allows me to farm blood longer during enemy team downtimes. When they're mostly dead, I just run the field and can stay out longer. Insatiable Blade could be worked out. Especially later on, this will probably make him an absolute monster because you're going to be doing so much attack damage. Over here we have Furnace Blast on 80, and we have Lamb to the Slaughter on 90, which is the hitching post. On this last one, I did Furnace Blast, and it really paid off in the late game when I had some of my stacks that were going on, and I'm going to bring that up in a little bit. My Furnace Blast was just catching a lot of people, doing a lot of damage, softening up people so that standard attacks and abilities after the Furnace Blast were just murdering everybody. If you believe you're going to get good clump points, go with Furnace Blast. But remember, with Lamb to the Slaughter, they're silenced and stuck, so they can't fight back very well. This one's an either or. I'd say it kind of depends on the map, and it depends on clump points. Here for the Butcher on tier 13. I had been doing none of these, actually. Savage Charge, all the way. Ruthless Onslaught deals bonus damage to heroes equal to 10% of their maximum health. Even if it's not a very tanky team, and it's a bunch of squishies, the fact that you're doing it here with Unrelenting Pursuit means they're getting whopped twice with this in a standard engagement. A no dodge out or no retreat engagement over here. And that's pretty nice. Cleaver, not too much. Brutal Strike could be good. I mean, next 3 basic attacks empowered. I just happen to like the raw damage of Charge. Brutal Strike, especially with other late game talents, you could make a case that this is pretty solid, but I've been doing Savage Charge. Crippling Slam. Hamstring Slow no longer fades out, and the duration is increased by 25%. Enraged or Blood Frenzy. Now, up until Brax's Holdout, the other 2 matches I did tonight, I was doing Blood Frenzy. Basic attacks against enemy heroes increase your attack and movement speed by 5% for 3 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. Super good for keeping that double charge engagement. However, on that last one, the stats that you saw, I did Enraged, which is receiving damage that reduces you below 50% of your maximum health, causes you to become enraged for 10 seconds. While enraged, you gain 40% attack speed and become resistant, reducing your damage by 25%. Incoming damage, that is. That worked out super well because it kind of gave me a new lease on life with charging in with the Furnace Blast. And knowing that there was a Nova on the enemy team, if she dropped a clone near the fight and people were deceived by it and she just stood out and waited, I'm now at a point, this new Butcher could be victimized by a good Nova. So I did this for protection, and it actually wound up really, really good. You get a little second row icon for this? Like when you get more abilities that fit on the first row and they go to that second row, and it's grayed out because you can't activate it. I can't necessarily say in the heat of battle that I noticed that it engaged, but I felt good picking it. This one may be a little bit of a flare pick. You may have to decide on this per map. I can tell you that both of them work out really well. I don't care about Crippling Slam. And then finally at 20, I had been doing Nexus Blades all night. Basic attacks deal 20% more damage and slow the enemy movement speed by 20% per second. So, again, it keeps Butcher right on you. Hopefully, waiting out the cooldown for that second Ruthless Charge, again, for standard engagement with somebody with no escapes. Or maybe even a Valla that dodged out and you still kept her in line and she like failed to get on a mount and really book it or dive into some bush. Fires of Hell was tempting, but I was mostly like, queue it up, charge in, blast it out, and then just focused on branding people and my activated abilities and my standard auto attacks. Nexus Blades did me better. Now, what happens with Butcher is that when he gets his quest meat, his axe glows bright magma red. And that's a sign that you did what you needed to do. And that's his new thing of the fresh meat. His quest is caked into his character now. He doesn't choose to do a quest like others used to, like Kalthus and everything. He now has this baked into every time you're doing the Butcher, you're on a meat quest. Nearby minions drop a fresh meat. Heroes drop 5. It looks like, might still look like 3 on the map, but it's pretty obvious. The thing is, the meat, much like a health globe, goes away now. I believe old meat used to stay and you could like go back and get it. So if you had a one-on-one and you both died, you could go back to the scene of the crime and get the enemy's meat that you had killed. Now it bounces fast like a globe and then goes away. So you can pick up fresh meat to gain 1 attack damage per meat. Can hold up to 125 meat. You drop 10 meat when you're dying. However, if you do this, you only drop 5. And once you complete the fresh meat quest, heroes continue to drop meat that heroes, mind you, heroes continue to drop meat that grants attack damage. You don't lose that meat on death. So it used to be Butcher dumped a good chunk of his meat, which capped out at like 25 if he died, and you had a talent that meant you dropped a little bit less or only half. It's changed now. I mean, losing 10 is only like 2 waves of minions or a hero in a wave or 2 heroes. Going abattoir means 1 wave of creep minions, you're back up to where you were. So you lose next to nothing on death. But later on, after acquiring 125 pieces of fresh meat, gain an additional 100 attack damage, 25% increased attack speed. You also no longer lose the meat on death. So, you, unlike, say, a Gathering Power type person, are unstoppable in that regard. And when you combine it with the hero one, you get an extra stack. So, you know how Valla used to have Hatred and Discipline, she still has it, and they were 2 separate stacks? The same thing happens with Butcher. On his little icon frame, you will get, when you complete the quest, you get what looks like a red crystal down there. If you kill a hero and pick up their meat, it says 5, and then it says 10, and it says 15. By the end of Braxis, because I wasn't dying, I was maintaining 30 plus hero meat. And my autos were like some people's abilities. I was just walking up to things and straight swinging, and things fell over. That went for PvE stuff, like camps. I would walk up to a camp, and 2 minion camps were dead in about 3 seconds. Didn't even need to brand. Full bigger camps, I would brand somebody in the beginning, and the camp was dead before the brand would come back up again. Structures, I was basically 3, maybe 3.5 hitting a fountain at that point in time. So, endgame Butcher is scary as shit. I think if you are running up against the Butcher, who does a similar build, if you see them going something close to what I talked about over here, put that guy down early, get him super frustrated, and maybe he'll play aggressive and angry and tilted and make bad calls. But if you have a very calm and patient Butcher doing late game Butcher, he is probably going to revenge the hell out of everything you've done to him the entire match. So, before I go, here's the skins that I've got for him currently. So, of course, there's stock Butcher in the gray, the green, and the kind of tan, which doesn't look that much different from regular. There's Master Butcher, which I am capable of buying, but have chose not to. However, if I did, mostly because I think it devalues the fact that I have a store skin, and it's kind of like, well, my limited lifespan of the store skin is over, and I'm now doing a master. Master Butchers make people feel better. If you see a Master Butcher on your team, you're like, okay, he's probably not a noob on the Butcher. That's good, because bad Butchers are awful, and they dive, and they die too much in that excessive diving. And new Butchers maybe don't even know you can cancel a charge and be like, oh, this isn't going to work out, I'm going to stop. So if I did go Master Butcher, this is definitely what I would pick. I like the contrast over here. I have been using Iron Butcher, which looks a lot like a Warlords of Draenor boss in BlackRock. Very, very similar. This is what I've been using for a long time now, and I'm now using the Obsidian Cyberwolf mount, but I had been using, prior to that, I don't think I was I was using the Butcher's Beast, which, as you can see, matches over here. But I now use that, because it works out pretty well. Now, there is a new store skin as part of the StarCraft bundle going on with the StarCraft theme mounts called the Butcher Lisk. It's a combination of a Hydralisk and a Butcher. I actually don't know that I would ever run this. These last two are pretty cool. Again, I like to try to highlight the fact that I'm not going to be a noob on the Butcher by going to the highest most skin. I mean, this may not make people feel as comfortable as a master skin, but if they know anything about it, at least they're going to know it's the highest level one. But Butcher Lisk, I almost think is just like a little plain, especially compared to the last one, but I might be tempted to do one of those three over there. So, there you go, guys. There is my late game Butcher build. You saw the results of it in the beginning of the video, so I have stats that back it up that I did fairly well on that match. And let's see, profile, match history. So today's matches as the Butcher was all 3 wins. Alarak is kind of interesting. I've discovered that when I did my first couple videos on Alarak, I really didn't have a feel for him at the time, and I now feel considerably more comfortable on him. He's still very squishy. It's still very easy to dive on him and just murder him down, but I now understand his abilities a lot more than I did in the beginning. Telekinesis is not something you can put out in the world like, you know, Brightwing dumping a blast or Tassadar dropping his blast on the ground. Telekinesis actually needs a target. So in the Alarak video, I was saying that when you're trying to run away on Alarak, this is a great move to get you out of trouble, but I found it almost impossible to land in a panic situation like, oh crap, I gotta get behind the gate, I'm gonna get dove on and killed. You have to take the time to target, like get the cursor over what you want for the telekinesis and then do something with it. So even in a panic situation, say you got a Valla chasing you down and she just vaulted into you to keep you in rage, take time as you're running to queue up your W properly and get that arrow on the Valla, and as you're getting it there, aim it through her, behind her, and you'll push her away, hopefully out of range, and you'll be able to escape. I kept saying the only thing you could do on the run is Lightning Surge, because this has a half-second cast time, and if you're moving, the game cancels it, rather than the game canceling your movement and doing the ability. But now that I finally figured out what's going on with telekinesis, it is a little bit easier to live on him in panic situations. So, there you go, guys. Hope you enjoyed this build video on the Butcher. Take care, everybody.